Hello and welcome. Today we are looking at the Pro Tour Secrets of Strixhaven decks and mostly what new cards were in them. Because what I found interesting, and don't be scared, but I'll show you a spreadsheet. Don't think this is work. What I did is I looked at all of the new cards that are in the... well, you can't even really see it as well here. Can you? All of the cards that are actually new in the top 8, and what I noticed is that I always do this, but what I noticed is that there aren't any new mythics in there. So we have some mythics in the Pro Tour, obviously, but there are only 4 of them, and I was wondering, are mythics really that bad, or is it just that we don't need them anymore? It feels a bit weird. Of course, we have Overboard and some other ones, Badger Mole Cup, for example, but there aren't a lot of them. So we will look at the new cards today and look at why they are so strong, even when they are just uncommons. And it is actually very interesting to see. First deck we are looking at is one with the most mythics in the deck itself. This is Selesnya Overboard, and Overboard isn't really new. It has been there. It is a very strong card, definitely for go wide strategies. Of course, Selesnya should be very good at that, and that is why you will see it here. So yeah, Overboard really strong. You will see why. It is. You put a creature onto the battlefield and Overboard will just strengthen it. And this Selesnya version is a bit weird. First of all, we have a Nurturing Pixie in there. And Nurturing Pixie is, of course, one that we already know from the Esper Pixie decks. And I have only been looking at the last 4 Pro Tours, so that's why it wasn't in there yet. But I think it is still interesting because it has changed this deck so much, but I want to start off with it because it is not really new. What is slightly new is Sage of the Skies. This one is from Tarkir and will be copied if you have already cast another spell this turn. So this means that you are trying to flurry out multiple spells and then play a 2/3 with flying and lifelink. And in a Selesnya deck, this is a very good creature to grow with your Overboard, of course. And then there's Focus Fire, which is in the sideboard, which deals X damage to an attacking or blocking creature, where X is 2 plus the number of creatures and or spacecrafts you control. So you will have a lot of creatures and you can deal a bunch of damage with this. Now note, already we have an uncommon, a rare and a common. A rare and a common. Also there were some in the sideboard that we haven't talked about yet, but I will talk about them a bit in later for later decks, because I feel like they will be more interesting there. Next one is another Selesnya version, which actually has the one of the new cards in its main deck. This Selesnya version is just mono green Landfall, but with some white cards in there. So we have Dyadrine, Synthesis, Amalgam, and we have Erode. And Erode is actually a big player in this particular Pro Tour. Why? Well, you will have to watch if you want to know. But it is a very good card. Let's talk about them. So new ones is firstly in the sideboard we have Sheltered by Ghosts, which is a sort of removal spell. It's 2 mana to put on a creature, you exile target non-land permanent, and the creature itself gets an extra power, lifelink, and ward 2. We have Restoration Magic in one version of this deck, which can be a protection spell, which might be needed when your creatures are so strong they have to be removed every time, so you can be pretty sure that Restoration Magic will do at least something. Kutzil in both of the 2 Selesnya Landfall sideboards. This one is just very strong, but it's more like a win more card. It will draw you a card whenever one or more creatures you control with power greater than its base power deals common damage to a player. Most of your creatures will have increased power, so this works almost every time. And Erode. Erode is a Path to Exile type card that allows your opponents to look for a basic land so that you can destroy a target creature or planeswalker. I'm saying Path to Exile because it's a 1-mana removal. Dyadrine is also new here, and it is another sort of landfall card. But mostly it is landfall because it needs a lot of mana to become good. It's an X spell where the amount of mana that you put into it will amount to a number of +1 counters put on it. So you can play it for 2, it will become a 2/3, you can play it for 3, etc. Whenever you attack, also you may remove one of those counters to draw a card and create a 2/2. You can also put counters on this to create even more creatures. So in a go wide strategy, again, this is very strong. Next deck is mono green, and it's kind of the same, but it focuses more on the awakening of lands, let's say. So we have a bit more focus on the Badger Mole Cup. What is new here is the Chocobo. It isn't really new in the archetype, but it is new in the Pro Tour if we are looking at the last 4 Pro Tours. Kind of logical that it won't go further than that. But it grows whenever a land enters. So not really new, not really flashy, but very cute and very deadly. Sapling Nursery is new. It is a spell that becomes cheaper for the amount of forest that you have. It can become even just 2 mana. At that point you should have enough forest to cast it. It has Landfall whenever you... Landfall, create a 3/4 with Reach, and Reach is actually useful in some of the decks you will play in the Pro Tour. And you can exile the enchantment to give 3 folks and forests, which is, I think, one of the best things about this for this deck, indestructible until the end of turn. So a lot of times your awakened lands will be targeted, and this can protect them. And you might feel like the 3/4s are the most important, but really making sure that your lands are protected is very strong too. Royal Treatment is, if I got it correctly in the sideboard, yes, sorry, it's an instant that says target creature gains hexproof, so it's a protection spell, and you create a royal roll token, which means that it gets +1/+1 and has ward, so it will be very protected even after this turn a bit, and then will grow a bit stronger. And there is Promising Vein, which is a land that is new that you can tap to sacrifice and search your library for a basic, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle, which is very good because then you have 2 landfalls. Origin of Metalbending, also new. It is a way to destroy target artifact or enchantment, and you can put a +1 counter on a creature to give it indestructible too. But let's talk a bit more about the Mossborn Hydra. It's a rare. It is very strong because it gets doubled in +1 counters every time a land enters the battlefield. So it will start with 1 +1 counter, then you will get an extra 1, and then you will get 2, then you will get 4, and it goes on and on and on. And it has trample, so that is one of the weaknesses of these types of decks. Another creature with trample that is new here is from the Ninja Turtles set. Is it the first one we saw? I think so. It also has a hexproof counter on her. And whenever she deals common damage to a player, you may remove a counter from her. And when you do, destroy target artifact or enchantment. So really is hating on the artifacts and enchantments. And not really sure. Might be because of the talents in the Izzet decks. Maybe that's it. But let me know if you find the answer sooner than me. Esper Origins, also new. Really weird that so many new things from mono green, it seems, but it is actually new in the Pro Tour. It's also a very simple deck and usually doesn't really have that much removal going on for it. So that which is very needed in most competitive matches. But it can remove artifacts and enchantments, and maybe that is why it wants to do that, because it wants some interaction at least. But okay, Esper Origins, 2 mana to Surveil to gain 2 life, and if it was cast from a graveyard, which you can do from the flashback, you may put it onto the battlefield transformed with a finality counter on it, and once you transform it, it turns into summon Esper Maduin, I think, which will reveal the top card of your library. You may put it onto the battlefield or into your hand when it's a permanent card. You can add 2 mana and you will grow other creatures in strength and give them trample, again solving one of the weaknesses of green, of these landfall decks at least. And Edge Rover, which when it dies will grant you a lander token, also has reach, which again is sometimes very useful here. Dragon Sniper, also with reach and death touch, so it is really targeting those flying creatures, this deck. Bushwhack, sort of removal, because it can help you fight between your creatures, or it could look for a basic land and put it into your hand. So a lot of new things there. But we have an old deck finally, which has returned. But I will still mention the things that are new here. It is Spelementals, and it is very strong, it's very fast, but it will burn out really quickly too. And last Pro Tour we also had an Elemental deck, but it was a bit different. This is still pretty new because of it. But we also got a lot of new instants. This is not new, but this destroys an artifact. Also can cycle. Prismari Charm is new, of course. It circles 2, then draws a card, deals 1 damage to each of 1 or 2 targets, which can often remove, for example, a starting Mossborn Hydra or the land that is created from the Badger Mole Cup, or you can return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Impractical Joke is also new, will do 3 damage to up to 1 target creature or planeswalker, and damage can't be prevented this turn, so you could also cast it just to stop damage from being prevented. Prevent damage from being prevented? Yeah, perhaps. Hydro Man from Spider-Man is also new and an elemental. It says whenever you cast a blue spell, if Hydro Man is a creature, he becomes stronger, and at the beginning of your end step, Hydro Man will turn into a land. You'll also get the ability to tap for 1 blue mana, which is very normal for a land. His face is weirding me out. Hexing Squelcher, very good. Many people said this is definitely made for Pro or CEDH decks, but it is also, of course, very good here. It will stop your spells from being countered, and it will give your creatures ward, pay to life. So it protects your creatures in multiple ways. Heroes Hangout is 1 mana to choose 1, and choose 1 things are very popular. I think this is one of the reasons, maybe, why these uncommons and commons are so common now in the Pro Tour. It is because they often feature a choice in them, like we saw with the Charm, which is an uncommon. It says choose 1 out of 3 things, so it will always be useful, and this is very important in the Pro Tour, where you need your things to always do at least something. You need to be very stable if you are going to win that many matches. What it can do, what this one can do for you is exile the top 2 cards. You may choose one of them to play it until the end of your next turn, or before that. Or you could say 1 or 2 target creatures get an extra power and first strike. Again, you can always use this, which is extra important if you are playing Spelementals, because this is all the way featuring around cards like this, like Hearth Elemental, which become cheaper whenever you play instant and sorceries, basically. So this one says cost X less to cast, where X is the number of cards in your graveyard that are instant and sorceries, and or have an adventure. Also, you can play the adventure here first, which says discard your hand to draw 2. Sometimes can be useful if you have an empty hand. And Flow State, also new actually from Strixhaven, Secrets of Strixhaven. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may put 1 of them into your hand and the rest of them on the bottom of your library. If there is an instant and a sorcery in your graveyard, so you need to have both, you can instead put 2 of them into your hand. So this is very strong. Sort of feels like it's going towards the Izzet normal deck, which has an ancestral recall if you go through a few loops. This one feels like it almost goes in there too, but it's a double up and it's just a bit simpler to get. Eddymurk Crab, thinking deck building of course, is another of those elementals that becomes cheaper for every instant and sorcery in your graveyard. Also will tap up to 2 target creatures, but it enters tapped if it's not your turn, because you can play it with flash to, for example, stop 2 of your opponent's creatures attacking you. Next deck is Lessons, which really isn't new because it has been around and people have been complaining about it, which I think is weird because really there have been so many new decks coming up every time. It feels like what Wizards is doing is working. But the only new card here is Boomerang Basics, which you already also know. It feels a bit weird that it is in this version of the deck, because looking at it, it doesn't have the talent that creates the others. Forget about it. But it is still pretty good as a sort of removal that can return a target non-land permanent to its owner's hand for 1 mana. So it is definitely helping you with tempo. That's it there, nothing new. So yeah, it's still around. It isn't as strong, but also people are really building around it to make sure that they have graveyard hate and stuff. For example, this deck, Azorius Tempo, in its sideboard has, for example, the Ghost Vacuum, which exiles target card from a graveyard, and with it, it will destroy the Izzet deck. Without it, it will definitely struggle. So it will need that sideboard to become strong against it. Let's talk about which cards in Azorius Tempo are new. There's a bunch. We have Spectacular Tactics. It's 2 mana to again choose 1, and it is a common, and this is a thing that happens over and over. This is what I noticed. The commons and uncommons seem to have so much more choice, and they all work together. But this one, just put a +1 counter on a creature, it gains hexproof, or destroy target creature with power 4 or greater. Skycoach Conductor, a rare. This one enters prepared and has all aboard, which means you can exile target creature if it is not a pilot, so it can't target another conductor. Then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control, so you can use the enter the battlefield effects again. Restless Anchorage is actually new, which feels weird because I've seen it a lot in Standard, but it is a land that can become a 2/3 with flying. Pyrrhic Strike, which is 3 mana, you may blight 2 and you choose 1, and if you use the blight ability you choose 2. Again, a choose card that is uncommon in this case. It destroys artifact or enchantment, or it destroys creature with mana value 3 or greater. So another removal. Then Petrified Hamlet, which is another land that allows you to choose a land card name, and then activated abilities of sources with the chosen name can be activated. Also, lands with the chosen name have tap to add 1 colorless mana, so you can stop the abilities of your opponent's strong lands. High Noon, which is kind of the, I would say almost namesake, but it doesn't get into the name, but it is very strong in this deck. It stops players from casting more than 1 spell each turn, and then for 5 mana you can sacrifice it to deal 5 damage to any target, and then you can of course go on and play more things. This is mostly to stop your opponents from doing stuff and making sure that you can at least do something on your turn and your opponent's turn as well. Floodpits Drowner is a creature with flash, which for example pairs with High Noon very well because you can play it on your opponent's turn or on your own, and you can be very flexible with that. But it has flash. When it enters, tap target creature an opponent controls and put a stun counter on it. This is definitely a hallmark of tempo decks that mostly just want to stop you from being fast and want to be fast themselves. You will get a 2/1 with vigilance, and you can shuffle it and target creature with a stun counter into their owner's library. So you can also use it to sort of remove the creature. Abandoned Air Temple is the last one, which is a land that can also put a +1 counter on each creature you control. Definitely strong if you can only cast one spell each turn, that you have things that you can sink your mana into, like this one where you can put +1 counters on every creature. So I feel like this deck definitely revolves around the High Noon. For what I have seen, it becomes very strong with this round. And let me know, what cards are you surprised by that are in here? And do you agree, because I feel like I will make a lot of enemies with this, that Wizards is actually probably doing pretty good in that there are many new decks coming out? Let me know, and I'd like to thank you for watching. Have a nice day. Bye.